At the beach with his fiancée, the Korean billionaire CEO turns pale after seeing his ex with twins. He was unstoppable, a Korean tech mogul who transformed the digital landscape. She was the one variable he couldn't calculate, so he chose his company over her heart. 5 years of exponential growth, 5 years of solitude until he sees her at the beach. With 2 identical little boys, their expressions mirror his own. His fiancée stands beside him unaware. His meticulously planned future just collided with his abandoned past. And the man who never faltered is about to break. This is the story of the billionaire who sacrificed love and the woman who raised his legacy alone. Welcome to a love that never computed. It just waited. Hey everyone, I'm back with another heart-stopping Afro-Korean love story that's guaranteed to leave you breathless. Before we dive into this billionaire CEO's shocking discovery, tap that like button if you're a fan of dramatic family reunions. I see you out there watching. Drop a comment with your country so our global family can connect in the thread. And if you're new here, hit subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next twist in this unforgettable series. Alright, let's step back into the story. The Jeju Island beach glittered like diamonds had been scattered across its pristine white sand. Jinwoo Park moved across it like he owned every grain beneath his feet, because in many ways he did. Not the beach itself, but the exclusive resort that framed it. The security detail that kept paparazzi at bay. The invisible bubble of privilege that separated him from the ordinary. At 34, he'd mastered the art of power. His company, Neurosphere, had revolutionized artificial intelligence in ways that made competitors weep. His algorithms predicted human behavior with terrifying accuracy. His wealth had long since exceeded the billions. The stock market trembled at his tweets. And yet, as he walked along that perfect beach, his fiancée Elise draped on his arm like the latest luxury accessory, he couldn't help but check his smartwatch. 5 notifications, 3 urgent emails. A market fluctuation in Singapore that needed his attention. Even in paradise, Jinwoo remained tethered to the empire he'd built. Elise didn't seem to mind. She was busy documenting their vacation for her 3 million followers. The perfect influencer fiancé for a tech titan. Her white bikini strategically revealed just enough skin to trend on social media without appearing tasteless. The diamond on her finger caught the sunlight, its 5 carats perfectly aligned with her brand partnerships. Their upcoming wedding had already secured exclusive coverage with 3 major publications. Everything was perfect. Everything was exactly as he had calculated it should be. Until he saw her, near the water's edge, partially obscured by a colorful beach umbrella. A woman sat watching 2 small boys building an elaborate sandcastle. Her silhouette impossibly familiar. Same curve of her shoulders, same way she tilted her head slightly to the right when she was thinking. Strong but soft, like someone who had learned to carry the world without complaint. Jinwoo's heart stopped before his brain could process why. Maya. 5 years evaporated in an instant. He was 29 again, standing in her apartment at 4 a.m., watching her sleep for the last time. He'd kissed her forehead, told her he was sorry, left before sunrise because the venture capital offer from Elise's father meant global expansion, meant leaving Korea, meant choosing the company over everything else. He'd convinced himself it was for the best, that Maya would find someone who could give her the stability she deserved. That love was a luxury tech geniuses couldn't afford when standing on the precipice of changing the world. He'd chosen the empire. He'd walked away from the only person who had ever understood both his brilliance and his broken places. And he'd never looked back. Couldn't, because looking back meant admitting he'd made a mistake. Jinwoo Park didn't make mistakes. His code was perfect. His business strategies were flawless. His life was a carefully optimized algorithm. But now she was 50 feet away. And she wasn't alone. 2 little boys surrounded her, identical down to their serious expressions as they worked on their sandcastle. They couldn't be more than 4 years old. Their dark hair fell across their foreheads in the exact same way as they concentrated on their creation. One boy, slightly taller perhaps, kept rebuilding a wall that kept collapsing. His frustrated expression, the way his eyebrows furrowed and his lips pressed together in determination. Jinwoo's entire body went cold. That was his expression. His exact expression when code wouldn't compile correctly. The same look he'd had in every childhood photo when a puzzle piece wouldn't fit. It was like looking into a mirror reflecting the past. The champagne flute he'd been holding shattered on the sand. Elise turned, startled by the sound, but Jinwoo couldn't hear her questions. The world had collapsed into a single impossible truth. He had sons. 2 of them, and he'd never known they existed. His feet moved before his brain could form a coherent thought. Elise's hand slipped from his arm as he walked toward the umbrella, toward Maya, toward the 2 boys who were now looking up at the sound of breaking glass. And when they turned, Jinwoo saw his own eyes staring back at him, multiplied. The same shape, the same intensity, the same analytical gaze that had made venture capitalists squirm in their seats. 10 feet away, he stopped. Maya had noticed him now. She stood slowly, instinctively moving between him and the boys. Her face went from confusion to recognition to something harder, colder. 5 years of abandonment crystallized in her eyes. "Mommy," that man dropped his glass. One of the boys said, pointing. Maya didn't look away from Jinwoo. Her hand reached back to touch her son's shoulder. Protective. Fierce. "Yes, he did," she said quietly. "Let's go back to our cottage. The tide is coming in anyway." She gathered their toys with efficient movements, her eyes never leaving Jinwoo's face. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. What could he possibly say? "I'm sorry? I didn't know? I would have stayed if I'd known?" All lies. He'd made his choice 5 years ago. The smaller boy looked at Jinwoo curiously, head tilted in that same way Maya always did when analyzing a difficult coding problem. For a moment, something like recognition flickered in the child's eyes. Not memory, but something more primitive. Genetic recognition. Elise appeared at Jinwoo's shoulder. "Jin, what's wrong? Who is?" Maya's gaze flicked to Elise, to the massive engagement ring, back to Jinwoo. Something passed across her expression. Pain, resignation, determination. Then she smiled. Not at him, but at her sons. "Come on, my brilliant boys. Race you back to the cottage." The twins took off running across the sand, their little legs pumping furiously as they laughed. Maya gave Jinwoo one last look. A look that contained 5 years of struggle, of pain, of building something beautiful from his abandonment, then turned and walked away. Jinwoo stood frozen, his heart hammering against his ribs like it was trying to escape. He'd faced down corporate rivals, survived 3 hostile takeover attempts, built a technological empire on calculation and control. But watching Maya walk away with his children, that broke something fundamental inside him. "Jean, who was that woman?" Elisa's voice was sharp now, cutting through the roaring in his ears. "And why do those children look like you?" He couldn't answer. Because the tech genius who abandoned love 5 years ago had just realized what his perfect algorithm had cost him. And the billionaire who never made mistakes was about to fall to his knees in the sand. Wow. Can you believe Jinwoo just walked away from true love for his company? If you're feeling emotional right now, smash that like button. And I see we have viewers from all over joining us. Drop your country's flag in the comments so I can see where my amazing audience is from. If you're enjoying this story, make sure you're subscribed because next week I'm sharing another incredible story you won't want to miss. Now, let's see what happens when Jinwoo confronts Maya. Jinwoo didn't remember leaving the beach. One moment he was standing in the sand watching Maya disappear with his sons, and the next he was in his private suite staring at nothing while his assistant canceled his afternoon meetings. Elise paced the room, her beach cover-up replaced by a crisp white sundress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped against her phone screen with increasing ferocity. "Are you going to explain?" she said eventually. "Or should I search social media to find out who your beach friend is?" Jinwoo's jaw tightened. "An ex. From before we met." "I gathered that much." Elisa's voice was liquid nitrogen. "And the children?" He said nothing. What could he say? That he'd just discovered he was a father? That the woman he'd left behind to build his empire had been raising his sons alone for 4 years? Elise laughed, cold, calculated, the laugh she used at charity galas when networking with people she despised. Of course. How inconvenient for our brand narrative. Elise, don't. She held up one perfectly manicured hand. We have the tech summit tomorrow. The Chun Investment Group will be there. Your absence would be noticed. She smoothed invisible wrinkles from her dress. So we'll discuss this later. When you've decided whether you're the tech visionary I agreed to marry or just another man thinking with the wrong head. The suite door closed behind her with a soft, final click. Jin-woo sat in the silence. His phone buzzed relentlessly. Messages from his executive team. Updates on the Singapore market fluctuation. Patent issue that needed immediate attention. The usual emergencies that justified his existence. He ignored all of it. Instead, he pulled up a contact he hadn't touched in 5 years. Park Min-ho, head of security. I need information. Tonight. The reply came in seconds. Name. Jin-woo hesitated, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then he typed, Maya Williams, currently staying at Yongmun Beach in a cottage rental. 2 sons, approximately 4 years old. I need location, contact information, professional status. Everything. Understood. Give me 1 hour. Jin-woo leaned back, closing his eyes. 1 hour. In 1 hour, he'd know where she lived, what she did, how she'd survived 5 years alone with 2 children. His children. The thought was a blade twisting in his chest. He'd always been careful. Always. But there had been one night, their last night together, when careful had seemed pointless. When he'd held her like the world was ending because for them it was. And now he had sons. 2 perfect, impossible sons who looked at him like a stranger. Who didn't know him at all. His suite felt suddenly cavernous. Empty despite its luxury. Jin-woo stared out at the ocean view that cost $10,000 a night and felt nothing but hollow. At precisely the 1 hour mark, his phone buzzed. Park Min-ho's report was detailed, thorough, devastating. Maya Williams, age 33, founder and CEO of Quantum Shift Software. Current residence, Seoul, South Korea. Relocated from San Francisco 4 years, 10 months ago. Sons, twin boys, age 4. Taemin and Taejun Williams. Birth certificates list mother only, no father registered. Company valuation, $220 million. Last funding round closed 6 months ago, $50 million. No criminal record. No debt. No current romantic affiliations. Additional notes. Jeju Island vacation appears unplanned. Booked cottage 3 days ago. Return flight to Seoul scheduled for tomorrow evening. Jin-woo read it 3 times. Quantum Shift Software. She'd built her own company. Valued at $220 million. She'd gone back to Korea, his Korea, after he'd left for Silicon Valley. For nearly 5 years, she'd been raising his sons in the same country where his family still lived. And she'd never asked him for a damn thing. No child support, no demands, no public accusations. Just silence. He didn't know whether to admire her or break something. His phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Beach. Sunrise. Come alone. His heart nearly stopped. It was her. He didn't question how she got his number. Maya had always been brilliant, the kind of mind that could hack a system just to prove it was possible. He typed back immediately, I'll be there. No reply. Jin-woo sat in the darkness until morning, watching the moon's reflection on the ocean. Tomorrow he'd face her. Tomorrow he'd learn about his sons. Tomorrow the tech genius who'd walked away from love would have to explain why he deserved a second chance. And he had absolutely no idea what to say. The beach at sunrise was nearly deserted. A few early joggers, a couple doing yoga near the water's edge, an old man walking his dog. The kind of ordinary, peaceful world Jin-woo had stopped noticing years ago. He arrived early, alone as requested. No security, no assistant, no Elise. Just him and the weight of 5 years' worth of consequences. She was already there, sitting on the sand near where the boys had been building their sandcastle. The structure was still there, surprisingly intact despite the evening tide. For towers, connected walls, even a small moat. His sons had engineering minds. His sons. The thought still felt impossible. Maya didn't turn as he approached, though he knew she sensed him. She'd always had an awareness about her, an ability to feel his presence before he announced it. "Your security team needs better encryption protocols," she said when he was 10 feet away. Her voice, God, her voice. Still the same warm alto that had talked him through coding problems at 3 a.m. That had whispered theories about quantum computing while tangled in his sheets. That had told him she loved him when he least deserved to hear it. "I'll fire the entire department tomorrow," he said, meaning it. "Don't. I'd have gotten through regardless." She turned then, and the full force of her gaze hit him like a physical blow. 5 years hadn't diminished her. If anything, she'd grown more beautiful, sharper, stronger. The softness he remembered was still there, but layered now with something harder. Motherhood, he realized. Survival. "Sit," she said. Not a request. Command. He obeyed, keeping a careful distance between them. For a long moment, neither spoke. The waves crashed against the shore, indifferent. Finally, Maya exhaled. "Why are you here, Jinwoo? You asked me to come. I meant on Jeju, to this resort, in my life again." Her eyes were steady, unreadable. The eyes of a CEO now, not just the passionate coder he remembered. Business summit. Tech industry leaders. "I didn't know." He stopped. "I saw them. And they're mine." She laughed, sharp and bitter. "Now you notice." "Maya." She held up a hand. "Don't you dare act like this is some tragic revelation. You knew there was a chance. That last night we both knew. And you still left." "I had to. You chose to." Her voice cracked slightly. "There's a difference." Silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of waves. Jinwoo's hands curled into fists against his thighs. "If I'd known." "You would have what? Stayed? Built a nursery between your investor meetings? Scheduled fatherhood into your optimization algorithm?" She shook her head. "You chose your company. I'm not even angry about that anymore. But don't rewrite history to make yourself the victim." "I never said." "You don't have to. I can see it in your eyes. The guilt, the regret, like somehow this is all some cosmic misunderstanding." She leaned forward, her voice dropping. "You made a choice. I respected it. I moved on. And now you show up at a beach with your influencer fiancé and expect." "What? Exactly?" He didn't have an answer. Maya sat back, wrapping her arms around her knees. "They don't know about you." His heart lurched. "What?" "Taemin and Taejun. I never told them about you. They've asked, obviously. Children do. I told them their father was in America, that he built important technology, that he couldn't be with us but would be proud of them." "You lied." Her eyes flashed. "I protected them." "There's a difference." "From what?" "From you." The words exploded from her. "From your world of 80-hour work weeks and ruthless acquisitions and treating people like they're just another resource to optimize. From falling in love with a father who would always put his company first." She paused, her breathing ragged. "I grew up without a father, Jinwoo. I know what that absence feels like. But I also know what it's like to love someone dangerous. And I won't let my sons live with that kind of heartbreak. They're my sons too. Biologically, yes. But you don't get to waltz in after 4 years and claim fatherhood like it's another company you've acquired. You have to earn it. Then let me." She stared at him, searching his face for something. Sincerity. Proof. He didn't know. "Why?" she asked finally. "Why now? You have a life. A fiancé. An empire. Why complicate it?" "Because they're mine." "That's not enough." "Because..." He stopped, the words catching in his throat. Maya waited. Jinwoo exhaled, forcing himself to meet her eyes. "Because when I saw them, I saw everything I gave up. Everything I convinced myself didn't matter. And I realized I've been lying to myself." "About what?" "About being able to live without you." The words hung between them, raw and honest. Maya's expression didn't change. "You're engaged." "I know. So what are you asking for?" "A chance to know them. To be... something. Anything." She looked away, toward the sandcastle their sons had built. "They're happy, Jinwoo. Safe. Loved. I've built a life for them, and I won't let you destroy that because you're having a midlife crisis at 34. I'm not. Then what? You'll fly in once a month? Play weekend dad between board meetings? Show them your cool office before jetting off to close another acquisition. She shook her head. I won't do that to them. I would never. You already did. Her voice was soft now. Sad. You chose that world over me, over us, and that's fine. But don't ask me to let you choose them now just because it's convenient. Jinwoo's throat burned. She was right. She was absolutely, devastatingly right. He'd walked away. He'd chosen power, influence, global domination. And now he wanted redemption without consequences. But Maya wasn't offering that. She stood, brushing sand from her jeans. My flight leaves tonight. We're going home. Maya. She paused, looking down at him. If you're serious, if you actually want to be part of their lives, then prove it. Show me you can be something other than a tech billionaire. Show me you can choose them, really choose them, not just when it's easy. How? She smiled. Sad, tired but not unkind. That's your job to figure out, Jinwoo. Not mine. And then she walked away again. Jinwoo sat alone on the beach, watching her disappear into the morning light. The tech genius who never failed. The billionaire who'd optimized every aspect of his existence. Completely, utterly powerless. Jinwoo didn't go back to his. Reunite. He sat on that beach until the sun was high overhead, burning his skin despite his expensive sunblock. Families arrived with their colorful umbrellas and coolers. Children shrieked with laughter as they splashed in the waves. The world kept spinning, indifferent to the fact that his had just stopped. Show me you can choose them. Really choose them. Maya's words echoed in his head like an indictment. His phone buzzed relentlessly. Elise, his executive team, the summit organizers. He was supposed to deliver the keynote in 3 hours, unveiling Neurosphere's latest AI breakthrough to the most influential tech leaders in Asia. He ignored every message. Instead, he called Minho again. I need more, Jinwoo said when his security chief answered. More what? I gave you everything. Their school. What's it called? What time do they finish? What do they like? What are they good at? Pause. You want me to surveil children? I want to know my sons. Minho sighed. Seoul International Academy. School finishes at 3:30. Beyond that, you'll have to ask their mother. Jinwoo hung up. Seoul International Academy. The most prestigious elementary school in Korea. Of course Maya would want the best education for them. He'd expected nothing less. But he didn't know what books they liked, whether they preferred dinosaurs or robots, if they were afraid of the dark or heights or loud noises, if they could swim yet, if they hated vegetables like he had as a child. He didn't know a single thing about his own sons. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He'd spent 5 years building an empire, accumulating power and wealth and influence. He could recite financial projections for the next decade. He knew the precise metrics of Neurosphere's user engagement across 17 countries. He could name every competitor's weaknesses and how to exploit them. But he didn't know his own son's favorite colors. What kind of father was he? The answer was simple. He wasn't one at all. His phone rang again. Elise. This time he answered. Where are you? Her voice was frost. The summit starts in 90 minutes. The entire industry is waiting. I'm not coming. Silence. Then, excuse me. I need time to think. To think. She laughed, humorless. About what? Your ex-girlfriend and her convenient reproduction story. They're my children, Elise. So she says. The words dripped acid. Have you done a paternity test? Or are you just taking her word for it? The question should have angered him. Instead, it just made him tired. I saw their faces, he said quietly. I don't need a test. How romantic. Her tone shifted, became almost seductive. Jean, darling, I understand this is a shock, but we've worked too hard to let this derail everything. Come back to the suite. We'll figure this out. Maybe a financial arrangement. Stop. The word came out harsher than he intended. They're not a problem to solve. They're children. My children. Another silence, longer this time. When Elise spoke again, her voice had changed. Softer, more dangerous. You're making a mistake, Jinwoo. This industry doesn't forgive sentimentality. Your competitors will see this as weakness. They'll come for you. Let them. And the woman? The children? You think your world won't touch them? You think you can just play happy family while running a multi-billion-dollar corporation with enemies in every tech hub from Palo Alto to Shanghai? That stopped him because she was right. His world didn't allow for softness, for vulnerability, for love. Every person he'd ever cared about had become a potential pressure point. His mother, manipulated by rivals until she'd fled back to Korea. His younger sister, whose college admission had been threatened during a particularly vicious corporate battle. Love, in his world, was a weapon, and Maya had already proven she was smart enough to stay away from it. I have to go, he said. Jinwoo, if you walk away from this summit, our engagement is over. He paused, then said the most honest thing he'd said in 5 years. I know. He hung up. For a long time he just sat there watching families enjoy the beach. Two paths stretched before him, impossibly divergent. One led back to his suite, to the summit, to Elise and Neurosphere and the carefully cultivated image of tech visionary that kept investors happy and stock prices high. To safety, to control, to the life he'd sacrificed everything to build. The other led to Maya, to Taemin and Taejun, to two little boys with his eyes and Maya's smile, to a chance at something real, something human. But that path had no guarantees, no protection, just hope. And hope, in his experience, got people crushed. His phone buzzed one more time. A message from an unknown number. He almost ignored it. Then he saw the attachment. A photo. Two little boys sitting at a tiny table, heads bent over what looked like a complex puzzle. Their faces were serious, identical in their concentration. One wore a blue t-shirt, the other green, the only way to tell them apart in the image. Below the photo, a single line of text, Taemin and Taejun. In case you were wondering which is which, Taemin is in blue. He's older by 7 minutes and never lets his brother forget it. Jinwoo's vision blurred. Taemin and Taejun. His sons had names. They did puzzles. They wore different colored shirts so people could tell them apart. One was 7 minutes older and proud of it. Maya could have kept this from him. Could have boarded that plane and disappeared back into her life in Seoul, never giving him another chance. She owed him nothing. Less than nothing. But she'd sent this. A thread, thin and fragile, but a thread nonetheless. He stared at the photo until his vision cleared, memorizing every detail. The way Taemin's head tilted slightly to the left. The way Taejun's fingers splayed across the puzzle pieces. The serious set of their identical mouths. His sons. His sons. The choice suddenly didn't feel like a choice at all. Jinwoo stood, pocketing his phone. The ocean stretched out before him, vast and infinite. He'd built an empire on impossible decisions, on choosing power over people, on sacrificing everything soft and good for the sake of his vision. But standing here now, looking at those two serious little faces, he realized something. An empire without love wasn't power. It was just a prettier kind of prison, and he'd been locked inside it for 5 years too long. He pulled up his assistant's number. Cancel everything. The summit. The meetings. All of it. Book me on the next flight to Seoul. Mr. Park, the investors. I don't care. Family emergency. Tell them I'll reschedule when I can. Sir, is everything okay? Jinwoo looked out at the ocean one last time. It will be. Oh my goodness. Jinwoo is about to meet his sons for the first time. This moment deserves a like if you're emotionally invested. I'm curious. Comment below if you think Jinwoo should choose his company or his family. I read all your comments. And if you're enjoying this storytelling journey, please subscribe for more emotional stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Okay. Now let's see how these adorable twins react to meeting their father. Seoul in autumn was a riot of color. The trees in Namsan Park blazed with reds and golds, a stark contrast to the steel and glass skyscrapers that dominated the skyline. Jinwoo had forgotten how beautiful his homeland could be, how the air smelled different here, how the rhythm of the city matched his heartbeat in ways Silicon Valley never could. For 2 weeks, he'd been living in a service department in Gangnam, close enough to Maya's office building that he might accidentally on purpose cross her path. Not stalking, he wasn't that far gone, but making himself available, visible, present. Every morning at precisely 7:30 a.m., he would arrive at her favorite coffee shop. The information courtesy of Min-ho, who had finally stopped protesting these surveillance requests. He would order 2 Americanos, one black for himself, one with a splash of cream for her, the way she'd always taken it, and sit at a table near the window. Sometimes she came in. Most days she didn't. On day 3, she'd spotted him through the window and walked right past. Her expression a mixture of annoyance and something else. Something almost like curiosity. On day 5, she'd entered, seen him, and walked straight to his table. "Are you going to do this every day?" she'd asked, not bothering with pleasantries. Yes. No hesitation. No explanation. She'd stared at him for a long moment, then taken the coffee he offered. "This doesn't mean anything. I know. You can't just walk back into my life because you suddenly decided fatherhood might be interesting. I know that too. Then why are you here, Jinwoo? Really?" He'd looked at her then, really looked, taking in the subtle changes 5 years had wrought. The fine lines at the corners of her eyes. The new confidence in her posture. The wedding ring conspicuously absent from her left hand. "Because I've spent the last 5 years optimizing algorithms, maximizing profits, and building the perfect life on paper." He'd paused, choosing his words carefully. "And I've never been more miserable." She'd rolled her eyes. "Poor little rich boy. I deserve that." "You deserve worse." But she'd sipped the coffee, grabbed a napkin, written something on it. 2 weeks. If you're serious about meeting them, really meeting them, not just satisfying your curiosity, then prove it. Come to this address tomorrow. 3 p.m. Don't be late. The address had turned out to be a small, nondescript building in Itaewon. Inside, a community center where underprivileged children learned coding basics. For 3 hours, Jinwoo had sat beside elementary school students, helping them with simple programs, answering questions, watching their eyes light up when they made something work. Maya had observed from the doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. The next day, he'd returned to find her waiting. "Different location today," she'd said, handing him a slip of paper. This time, a children's hospital. 5 hours reading stories to kids too sick to hold books themselves. Day after day, Maya tested him. A shelter for single mothers. A playground built in a neglected neighborhood. A fundraiser for a school that needed computers. And day after day, Jinwoo showed up. No complaints. No questions. No checking his phone or cutting out early for meetings. Just present, fully present, in ways he'd never been before. On day 12, Maya had finally asked, "What about your company?" They were sitting on a bench outside the coding center, watching the sunset. Jinwoo had spent the afternoon teaching 10-year-olds about loops and variables. "I've stepped back. My COO is handling day-to-day operations. The board isn't happy, but they'll survive. Elise, the engagement is over." Maya had studied him, searching for regret or resentment. Finding none, she'd sighed. "You're actually serious about this." "I told you I was. People like you don't change, Jinwoo." "Not really. Watch me." Now, on day 14, Jinwoo sat in a small cafe near Seoul International Academy, his heart hammering against his ribs. This was the day. Maya had finally agreed. After the boys finished school, after she'd had a chance to prepare them, he would meet his sons. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. His phone had been buzzing all morning. The Neurosphere board was in full panic mode. Rumors of his absence had started affecting stock prices. Competitors were circling, sensing weakness. Elisa's father had made veiled threats about pulling his investment. Jinwoo had silenced the notifications. None of it mattered. Not today. At 3:15 p.m., Maya texted, "We're at the park across from the school. Blue bench near the playground." Jinwoo nearly knocked over his coffee in his haste to leave. He'd rehearsed what to say 1,000 times. How to introduce himself. How to explain his absence without lying but without burdening 4-year-olds with adult complexity. How to be someone they might want in their lives. The park was small but well-maintained. Jin-woo spotted them immediately. Maya sitting on a blue bench, watching 2 small figures race around the playground equipment. His sons. His heart nearly stopped. Maya saw him approaching and whispered something to the boys. They stopped their game and turned, identical expressions of curiosity on their perfect faces. Jin-woo's legs nearly gave out. They were smaller than he'd imagined from the photos. More real, more miraculous. Both wore school uniforms, tiny button-up shirts and navy shorts. Taemin wore a blue watch. Taejun had a green backpack. The color coding continued. Jin-woo stopped a few feet away, afraid to come closer, afraid to breathe wrong and shatter this moment. Maya stood, her expression cautious but not hostile. "Boys," she said gently, "remember how I told you about your father? The one who lives far away and builds important technology." They nodded solemnly. "This is him. This is your father, Jin-woo Park." Silence stretched between them, fragile as spun glass. Jin-woo crouched down slowly, bringing himself to their eye level. "Hello, Taemin." "Hello, Taejun," he said softly, his voice rougher than he intended. "I've wanted to meet you for a very long time." Taemin, the one with the blue watch, stepped forward first, his expression serious. "You look like us," he said. Not a question but an observation. The analytical one, Jin-woo realized. The one who processed facts before emotions. "You look like me," Jin-woo agreed. "You have my eyes." "Where have you been?" Taemin asked, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. Jin-woo glanced at Maya, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Permission to answer truthfully. "I've been in America, building a company. I didn't know about you until 2 weeks ago, but as soon as I found out, I came as quickly as I could." Taemin seemed to consider this, head tilted slightly, processing the information with a gravity no 4-year-old should possess. Then he nodded once, accepting the explanation without judgment. Taejun still hung back, partially hidden behind his mother's leg, watching with more caution than his brother. Finally, he took a small step forward. "Do you like robots?" he asked quietly. "I like robots. I built one at school, but it fell apart." Jin-woo felt something crack open in his chest. "I love robots," he said. "I built many that fell apart before I made one that worked. Would you like me to help you with yours sometime?" A small smile appeared on Taejun's face, tentative but real. "Okay." And just like that, the ice broke. Jin-woo found himself sitting on the ground as the twins showed him their favorite playground equipment, their school projects, their matching scrapes from learning to ride bicycles. They spoke a mile a minute, often finishing each other's sentences, occasionally arguing over details. Taemin was indeed the leader, logical, precise, already showing signs of the mathematical mind that had made Jin-woo a prodigy. Taejun was quieter but more imaginative, thinking in creative leaps that often left his brother confused. Together, they were perfectly balanced. Yin and yang, logic and creativity, just like Jin-woo and Maya had been once upon a time. He glanced up to find Maya watching them, her expression unguarded for the first time in 2 weeks. There was pain there still and wariness, but also something that looked almost like hope. And Jin-woo, who had calculated every variable in his life since he was old enough to understand mathematics, felt something he'd forgotten existed. Joy. Pure, unexpected, unoptimized joy. For an hour, they existed in a bubble of discovery. Jin-woo learning his sons, they learning him. Maya observing, occasionally translating when excitement made the boys lapse into rapid-fire Korean that Jin-woo's rusty fluency couldn't quite catch. It was Taemin who finally asked the question Jin-woo had been dreading. "Are you going back to America now?" The playground fell silent. Even Taejun stopped mid-sentence about his robot designs. Jin-woo looked at Maya, then back at his sons. "No," he said firmly. "I'm staying in Seoul. I want to spend more time with you if that's okay. If your mother agrees, and if you want me to." "Like on weekends?" Taejun asked. "At first, maybe. And then we'll see." "Will you teach me coding?" Taemin asked. Mom says I'm too young, but I'm not. I can do it. Jinwoo smiled. If your mother says it's okay, then yes, I'd love to teach you. And will you help me with my robot? Taejun pressed. Of course. The boys exchanged a look, having one of those silent twin conversations that outsiders couldn't interpret. Okay, they said in unison. Just like that, the simplicity of children, the generosity of fresh hearts not yet hardened by disappointment. When it was time to leave, Jinwoo felt panic rising. What if this was all he got? What if Maya changed her mind? What if the boys decided they didn't want to see him again? But as they prepared to head home, Maya surprised him. Saturday, she said quietly while the boys packed up their backpacks. You can come to our apartment. 10 a.m. Bring breakfast. Thank you, Jinwoo whispered, the words entirely inadequate. She shook her head. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for them. They deserve to know their father. She paused, then added, but Jinwoo, if you hurt them, if you make promises you don't keep, if you walk away again, I will destroy you. Not physically, not violently, but I will dismantle your company piece by piece. I will make sure everyone knows you abandoned your children twice. I will make you regret ever coming back into our lives. He believed her, completely. The woman who had built a multimillion-dollar tech company while raising twins alone could absolutely ruin him if she set her mind to it. I understand, he said. Good. Saturday, 10 a.m. Don't be late. As Jinwoo watched them walk away, Taemin and Taejun turning to wave every few steps until Maya gently urged them forward, he felt something shift inside him, a recalibration. For years, he'd optimized his life for success, for power, for dominance in an industry that devoured the weak. Now, watching his sons disappear around a corner, he realized the algorithm had been wrong all along. The inputs flawed, the variables miscalculated. Because nothing, not his company, not his billions, not his technological legacy, nothing was worth missing another day of their lives. Jinwoo kept his word. Saturday morning, 9:58 a.m., he arrived at Maya's apartment building carrying breakfast pastries from the best bakery in Seoul and 2 small gift bags. Not expensive presents, Maya had been explicit about that, but books he'd carefully selected. For Taemin, a colorful introduction to coding concepts disguised as a treasure hunt. For Taejun, a guide to building simple robots from household items. For the first time in his adult life, Jinwoo was nervous. Genuinely, sweatily nervous. The apartment was not what he expected. Given Maya's success, he'd anticipated something luxurious, perhaps in one of Seoul's most exclusive buildings. Instead, it was a modest 3-bedroom in a quiet residential neighborhood. Comfortable but not ostentatious. Practical. The home of someone who had money but didn't feel the need to display it. The twins greeted him with more enthusiasm than he deserved, immediately dragging him to their bedroom to show him their projects, their toys, their world. Maya watched from the doorway, her expression guarded but not hostile. Over breakfast, Jinwoo learned more about his sons in 2 hours than he'd learned about anyone in years. Taemin loved puzzles and could already read at a 2nd grade level. Taejun had an uncanny ability to build structures with anything available. Blocks, pillows, even breakfast pastries before Maya gently redirected him. They had different laughs, different preferences, different fears, identical DNA expressed in beautifully unique ways. That first Saturday turned into a routine. Every weekend, Jinwoo would arrive with breakfast and spend the day with his sons. Sometimes at Maya's apartment, sometimes at museums or parks or the children's section of the library. Slowly, cautiously, he built a relationship with these miraculous boys who shared his blood but had grown into their own people without him. And slowly, even more cautiously, he rebuilt something with Maya. Not romance. That bridge had burned long ago. But a fragile co-parenting relationship built on mutual respect and the undeniable love they both had for their sons. 4 weeks after that first meeting, Jinwoo's phone rang during dinner at Maya's apartment. His COO frantic. Sir, we need you back immediately. The Chun Group is moving forward with a hostile takeover. They've acquired 12% of our shares in the last week. The board is calling for an emergency meeting. Jin-woo looked across the table. Taejun was demonstrating his latest robot design using chopsticks and napkins. Taemin was carefully calculating how many more bites of vegetables he had to eat before being excused. Maya was watching him, clearly having overheard enough to understand the situation. 5 years ago, he would have been on the next flight to Silicon Valley. His company, his creation, was under attack. Everything he'd built was at risk. "Handle it," he said quietly. "I trust you." "Sir, with all due respect, this is serious. Elisa's father is behind this. He's saying you've lost focus, that the company needs new leadership. Then call a press conference. Announce the company's expansion into the Asian market. Tell them I'm establishing our Seoul headquarters personally." "Seoul headquarters? Sir, there's no plan for." "There is now." Jin-woo ended the call, then turned off his phone completely. Maya raised an eyebrow. "Trouble at the Empire? Nothing important." She studied him for a long moment, then shook her head slightly. "You're actually doing this. You're actually choosing them. I told you I would." That night, after the boys were asleep and Jin-woo was preparing to leave, Maya handed him a cup of tea and gestured to the sofa. They sat in companionable silence for a few minutes, the apartment quiet except for the distant sounds of the city. "I hated you," Maya said finally, "after you left. I hated you so much I thought it might consume me." Jin-woo didn't interrupt. She deserved this moment. "When I found out I was pregnant, I almost contacted you. Almost." She stared into her tea. "But then I thought about what you'd said. Some dreams require sacrifice. And I realized you'd already made your choice." She looked up at him. "So I made mine. I decided my children would never be anyone's sacrifice." "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "For what it's worth, I've regretted those words every day since I said them." "Not every day," she corrected. "Only since you saw them on the beach." He couldn't argue with that. "You're right. I was a coward. I told myself I was choosing the greater good, that my technology would change the world in ways that justified any personal sacrifice. And did it? Change the world?" Jin-woo thought about his AI algorithms being used to predict consumer behavior, to target advertisements, to make the rich richer. Some medical applications, yes, but nothing that justified what he'd sacrificed. "No," he admitted. "It just changed me." Maya was quiet for a long time. Then she said something that shattered him completely. "They ask about you, before. When they were younger. Why other kids had daddies and they didn't. I never told them you chose to leave. I never wanted them to think they weren't enough." Jin-woo's throat closed entirely. He couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but feel the full weight of what he'd done. Not just to Maya, but to these perfect boys who had entered the world wondering why their father didn't want them. "I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to them," he managed finally. "See that you do." But there was no venom in it now. Just the fierce protectiveness of a mother who would burn the world down for her children. When Jin-woo left that night, something had shifted between them. A corner turned. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps the beginning of something like peace. For 2 more weeks, the rhythm continued. Weekends with the boys. Friendly, cautious conversations with Maya. The gradual integration of Jin-woo into their lives. He found an apartment nearby. Made plans to establish a genuine neurosphere office in Seoul. Created a new future that included his sons not as an afterthought but as the center around which everything else revolved. For the first time in 5 years, Jin-woo felt like he could breathe. Like he was finally moving toward something real instead of chasing the next acquisition, the next innovation, the next empty achievement. And then, on a perfect autumn Saturday, as he built sandcastles with his sons at a small beach outside the city, an echo of that first sighting that had changed everything, his phone buzzed with a notification that made his blood run cold. A photo of the twins leaving their school yesterday. One word beneath it, found. Then a second message, from Elisa's father, board meeting Monday, Seoul International School, 3 p.m. Bring your children or bring your resignation. Jin-woo stared at his phone, his hands shaking with fury and fear. Elisa's father had found his sons. was threatening them to control Jinwoo, using children as leverage in a corporate war. It was exactly what he'd feared all along. His world touching them, tainting them, putting them at risk. He looked up to see Taemin and Taejun laughing as they decorated their sandcastle with shells, unaware that their lives had just been threatened. Maya sat nearby, watching them with the soft smile she reserved only for her sons. Jinwoo held his phone so tightly he thought the screen might shatter. In that moment, everything became blindingly clear. His company could fall. His billions could vanish. His technological legacy could be erased from history. None of it mattered. Nothing mattered except keeping those boys safe, happy, loved. The tech genius who had sacrificed love for ambition 5 years ago finally understood which algorithm was flawed. The billionaire who had optimized his life for success finally recognized the true variable he'd been missing. Family wasn't something you sacrificed for your dreams. Family was the dream worth sacrificing everything else for. As the boys called for him to help with their sandcastle, Jinwoo put his phone away. The battle with Elisa's father could wait until Monday. Today belonged to his sons. Today and every day after, for as long as they would have him. Oh, my goodness. What a cliffhanger. If you want to see what Jinwoo chooses, his billion-dollar empire or his family, make sure you like this video right now to let me know. We need 10,000 likes to continue the story next week. Comment below what you think will happen next. Will he lose everything or find something more valuable? I'm reading your theories. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and notification bell because part 2 is coming soon and you do not want to miss it. Thank you so much for watching from all around the world. Your support means everything. See you in the next emotional journey.